gummy bear.
It's the internet, you're busy. Let's do this for April 26th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Xbox sales are hurting and a next-gen console is going to use the mystical power of magnetism. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Tamoor Hussain, everybody. Tam, how are you doing?
I'm back.
He's back.
Okay, I'm back. I went away for a couple weeks and I watched the Friday Game Messes, and let me tell you, unimpressed.
You were disappointed. I could feel it.
Yeah.
I knew. I was worried.
They went way too smoothly.
Yep.
They were good news stories.
Yep.
And everyone knows Friday is Dregsday, where
That's
we
right.
scrape the bottom of the barrel and do it in the most uncoordinated, unprofessional way possible.
I wouldn't have it any other way, other than the times when I do have it other ways, and then I too am disappointed.
Yes.
I'm glad you're back. How
I'm back.
were your world travels?
I'm going to interrupt you.
I love that.
I'm going to act bored.
That's the best.
Okay? I'm going to do some real bad jokes.
Yeah, ooh, don't promise.
I will come dangerously close to getting cancelled. That is the goal. My travels were good. So I went to London for a bit, couple weeks. Had some visa stuff I needed to do, and also went over to the BAFTA, the Game Awards there. Which of the Game Awards, BAFTA is one of my favorite, probably my favorite, if I'm honest.
Seemed like a really good time.
It's really good. I don't think there's enough credit given to the people that organize it and the amount of time they put into balancing. This is a celebration, and also this is a good time celebration, but also this is recognition. And I feel like BAFTA does it really well. And there's an air of there's an air of like class to it. Like it feels like a classy affair where you go there, everyone's dressed like black tie style, and it's nice. And I like it as a companion to like the Game Awards. The Game Awards is something that feels like more like a popcorn celebration of video games that has Super Bowl levels of ads shoved into it constantly. And again, a difficult balance, but I think Keighley does best. I just like that there's two kind of sides to this coin, and I'm a BAFTA member as well, so I do as much as I can to try and support that organization. They're part charity as well, so. And then every now and then they are gracious enough to let me host or like do something with them. And I was on the jury this year. I've been on the jury previous years as well. And I always super, super appreciate it. It makes me feel still connected to the British games industry, and still also kind of like an opportunity I see an opportunity there to take that BAFTA presence broadly across, more territories. They exist in the US, but not to the degree in as they do in the UK. But I think they will slowly build their profile here as well. And
I think that's already happened. I think you're part of that. I was like much more tapped in than I had been in the past, and so this does feel like it has some prestige to it. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing that people don't really remember. People are always like, when will we get our prestige, award show? It's there, man. Yeah, it's there. It's like BAFTA is incredibly well run and it's really smart, and like every part of it is super, super like you would imagine a classy, prestige award show would be like. There's like makeup and hair, and you have to go through rehearsals, and it's as wild. And like there's photographers following you around everywhere, and you do a red carpet walk and have interviews on the red carpet, and it's like amazing for people who are there and nominate. I could see game developers feeling so good about themselves. Even like the indie ones, they're coming in, they're dressed real nice, and then people are like red carpet, and they shuffle them from like one interview to another with like the BBC or what it might be, and they feel good. By the time you get in there, you can see like the smile on the faces of these developers who feel like even if I don't win, I just got treated like I'm a superstar, and that feels real good.
I'm glad they get their night, and it's and we have a bunch of different awards shows now, so it's like they have a chance to experience the whole spectrum there. That's great. When you are traveling and doing all this stuff, Tam, are you feeling like pretty good about this time of year? Maybe things slowing down a little bit, because it feels like it ramped down a little bit, but then we're like looking ahead and things ramp right back up, right? Was it like, okay, I'm like missing out on stuff in terms of like gaming and keeping on top of things?
To a degree, I think the thing that I struggle with is like the releases can sometimes slow down.
Sometimes.
But the work behind the scenes doesn't slow down.
It hasn't.
Like, it is like, while I was there, I was working on Summer Game Fest and also like a bunch of reviews and previews and that kind of stuff. I do miss not being able to play a bunch of games, especially the current ones. Like there was a time when I last went where I got not stuck, but like ended up being in the UK for like 6 months. And when I went over, thankfully, like I hit up Sony and Microsoft of contacts there, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll just loan you consoles so you can do your work while you're here," which was extremely kind of them.
That was really nice.
Yeah, and so like I was able to like still coordinate reviews and play games and make sure that I was like checking reviews properly, etc., etc. This time it was like, I'm not going to do that. I'll just deal with having a Steam Deck, and the Steam Deck was great. And I took my Miyoo Mini Plus as well with me for one.
Hell yeah.
Good times on the side, and those two have been enjoyable. Those were good in like just playing games, not like staying current with games. So yeah, it's a bit of both, really.
Right. You gotta like when you gotta turn down one of the knobs on the burners, right? And it's like keeping up with the games that are coming out right this moment. It kind of gets turned down. I know exactly what that's like. And you know, in this moment, like right now, I think people are like, okay, you know what? There are still games coming out, but people are starting to like divert their attention to be like, I'm gonna go get into my own thing instead of like trying to keep up with the zeitgeist, which it feels like for the last 15 months, it was, let's keep up with the zeitgeist. So I think people are getting a little bit of breather on that side of things. But you're right, behind the scenes, constantly still busy. Yeah. All right, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Xbox console sales are tanking. This is from Ethan Gotch at Kotaku. After months of debate about Xbox's future as some of its big console exclusives jumped ship to PlayStation 5, we have our clearest evidence yet as to why Microsoft is experimenting with a new multi-platform approach. Fewer and fewer people are buying Xboxes. The tech giant announced in its third quarter earnings that Xbox Series X and S revenue is down 30% year over year. It blamed the nosedive on a lower volume of consoles sold during the start of 2024. If that sounds like a repeat of last year, it's because it is. Xbox hardware revenue decreased 30% on a strong prior year comparable, driven by lower volume of consoles sold, Microsoft reported back in April 2023. In February, Grand Theft Auto 6 parent company Take-Two claimed in a presentation to investors that there were roughly 77 million Gen 9 consoles in people's homes, current generation. It didn't take fans long to do the math and speculate that Microsoft had sold around 25 million Xbox Series X and S consoles to date. That puts it ahead of the GameCube, but behind the Nintendo 64, at least for now. Given the results this quarter as well, it doesn't seem like Game Pass and Starfield have moved the needle much. I feel like this is, we could sense this was what was happening, and definitely, like, they know, they're looking at the numbers like daily. They're looking at the numbers each week. They get their reports back, and I do feel like that was part of the reason behind the quick effort to get a bunch of games out on PlayStation and sort of reset the story when they're talking to investors, and like when Phil's talking to Satya Nadella or whatever. I also think like this isn't too shocking because, you know, Starfield didn't quite hit the way they wanted it to, and that was the thing that was going to sell Xboxes, and so here we are, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is both. No, I don't think it's a surprise. I can understand. I think it's both understandable why they would want to put games on other platforms, because of like how the Xbox is doing, but also because the business of games is also changing in ways that you kind of have to do that in a lot of ways. Sony is doing it. They're putting it on PC.
Yes,
They're just not doing it on the platform that has the Xbox logo on it. But like, make no mistake, there's very little difference between the justification behind it.
That's right.
From a business perspective, you spend that much money on making a video game in this day and age, which is millions and millions and millions, and then millions and millions to marketing it, and you give yourself basically one shot to make it a success on one console. That's just bad business, man. Like, it is like you can't, you're trying to, everyone's aiming for a hole-in-one in that situation, which is tricky to pull off. You know what I'm saying? So you have to kind of like think about, okay, how can we make it so this risk that we're about to take can be offset by the likelihood of, recouping some of the costs, if not all of the costs, and maybe giving ourselves a shot at even profiting from this. And the way you do that is by putting your product on as many places in front of as many eyes as possible. Gamers don't like that reality because it means that the console that they love the color of doesn't have the games that they want, and it's on the other colored console, if you know what I mean. It's like tribalism. But if you care about video games, this is something that you kind of have to embrace, knowing that if you continue to force people to, have single shot attempts at making games success, you're more likely to lead to downfall of video game development than some cool, club being created and it becoming a self-sustaining community. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and it's tough to sort of figure out how. Like, I think they're in a transitionary period. I think they know that, but I think they predicted that some years ago. What is troublesome is I think they were predicting it, and then they started making several like moves and positions for Xbox and the brand overall that I think hurried along some of these factors. Now, the biggest factor, 100%, is it takes a long time to get these games out, and so they don't have a ton of stuff that screams this is what you need an Xbox for. A lot of the biggest games on Xbox you can get elsewhere, and not just like PC. Like a lot of the biggest games on Xbox were third-party games. Today that's going to be tough especially when it comes to just selling the console, to like tell that story of here's why you need to get that. But then I think there's a lot of other stuff like, hey, we are putting all our games out on PC day one. I think they're like looking at a future where we would get to this point and they're like, let's do that. And it's like, okay, well, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now we're here and people aren't buying Xboxes, and they tell us, and I believe them when they say that doesn't bother them. They just want you playing the games. They don't care where you're playing them. But at the same time, it still feels like, it feels like this is going to be a hurdle that they are going to have to get over still, that there is no clear path forward to like, oh, this is the solution to your problems. Feels like they're still mired in all of the problems, and we haven't gotten to that other side where it's like, okay, well, they have the future figured out. So at the moment, seeing this number like nosedive still feels like, well, this is the biggest issue you have to solve. Do you feel like they're close to figuring out the answers here?
No, I don't think so. I feel like I think they will. I don't think that we're at the phase right now where they understand what they need to do and they're building towards it. I think they're still in the experimental phase of how do we make the business kind of stabilize, but also how do we make sense of all the decisions that we've made up until this point? Because I don't think they're bad decisions at all.
No.
Like, I know people look at Game Pass and they're like, well, that was stupid. I don't think so. I think that Game Pass is very, very good. I feel like there's tweaks that need to be happening in behind the scenes and even up front as well that could get Game Pass into the position where it is genuinely doing well for them. I'm not the person to say what those are. I'm too stupid for that. But like, I think back to how Netflix was. Netflix, when it came out, like, it was very weird. Like, it was such a strange thing. Right. I also think about Steam. Like, I remember when Steam came out and how like disgusted I was with it, which I was like, what? I woke up one day and like now the way I play Counter-Strike is completely different, and the way I buy games, and the sentiment remained like that for a long time because Valve was still figuring it out. Like, they didn't really get it, but they believed in the vision. They kind of rolled with the punches, and eventually now, like, it's so ubiquitous, and that people don't even remember when Steam was shit. And you know what I'm saying? So I feel like Microsoft will get to that kind of period eventually. It's just a matter of, are they committed enough to take those punches for the time it takes to get there? Because there could be a situation where, especially in this day and age, in the video game world, people start going down this path, realize that it's not working right now, and bail. And that feels like it's an issue as much as like bad ideas, because committing to things is what you need to do to kind of get to the point where things start to work for you. So I don't think they're there yet. I think that they will get there. It's just a matter of, are they willing to commit? I know that the Xbox team probably are willing to commit, but the Xbox team ultimately don't make that decision. Like, Phil Spencer still has to speak to Satya, and if Satya's like, you're cooked, man. Can't really say anything against that, right? Like you have
Right.
to, you're done. But I feel like we still have I think the next generation is when stuff like Game Pass starts to make more sense, when it's not a new thing, and also it's been bedded in for long enough with a single console that it starts to make a lot of sense. I think about it in the same way that online play came to Xbox and what it did for gaming as a whole. On Xbox One, people were like, "Ha, what? No way!" And I was okay because broadband propagation wasn't super high. People were like, the systems weren't in place to make it slick or like interesting or engaging or user friendly. And then Xbox 360 came along, and it was like second generation of that idea. And it was like, oh my God, this is how we have to play video games forever.
Yeah.
And that is when they really popped off.
Yeah, and I mean, to repeat myself again, the answer seems to be like, get these games out, have them be must plays, have them on Game Pass. People will find natural times, like natural lulls, to be like, you know what, maybe now's the time to go check out Game Pass, and they'll do that wherever they can find it at that point, and that's what Microsoft wants. But I think they've found that the people that are like, Game Pass makes sense for me already, they've maximized that return. They've already found all those people, and now the growth period is going to require them to get big chunks of new players by having great games you can't ignore. Starfield was supposed to be that. It didn't turn out to be that, and so I think that the overall story continues to be pretty soft, other than, they are, sales are up year over year for Xbox. That's because they made a big acquisition in Activision. If you take that out of the equation, I think sales are down like 5% or something like that. So yeah, they needed these acquisitions to grow. They need these acquisitions to put more stuff into Game Pass, and to just put more stuff in their overall platform that makes the overall business look healthy. They're committed.
I don't know how would you characterize their multi-platform strategy? Because to me, it feels like initially I was like, oh, they're going to take the games as service titles that give them like, perpetual revenue, even if it's a small amount, and put those on other consoles, especially PlayStation. They have done that with like Grounded and Sea of Thieves, which I know Sea of Thieves has like monetization. I think Grounded has a decent amount of as well, and then they chuck on Hi-Fi Rush. So I wouldn't say like it's exclusively games as a service title, but that feels like what they're trying to do. Where it's like, let's take these things that become lifestyle games and see if we can get them on, getting some steam on other consoles and platforms.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer for the live service forever games. Those ones will kind of just continue to do this across the board. I mean, we even hear that Sony is reportedly looking into bringing Helldivers 2 to Xbox. Like, that's probably not going to happen, but the fact that a conversation could have started there shows where things are at with live service games. But I think for Microsoft, it's like, no, we need to be considering every possibility for every game. And not every game will make the jump, but it seems like a lot more are. In fact, that's the next story. Microsoft CEO says they are committed to meeting players where they are after Xbox games dominate PlayStation Store. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Microsoft has suggested that Xbox is starting to reap the rewards of its increased multi-platform focus. While it already had a strong foothold on rival platforms thanks to perennial bestsellers Call of Duty and Minecraft, Xbox recently announced plans to bring more first-party games to PlayStation and Nintendo Switch, starting with Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, and Grounded. And during Microsoft's third quarter earnings call on Thursday, CEO Satya Nadella said Xbox have been performing strongly on the PlayStation Store. Earlier this month, we had 7 games among the top 25 on the PlayStation Store, more than any other publisher. And we talked about that story on the show a few days ago, a couple weeks ago. There was basically a report that's like, hey, at this moment, 7 Xbox published games are on the top 25 for the PlayStation 5, and only 5 Sony games. That's more than any other publisher, in fact. And so to follow that up, apparently Satya Nadella saw that story, is now chirping about it, yapping about it in their earnings call. And
he does like to yap.
He does like to. Who doesn't like to yap?
He's a yapper.
Oh yeah. And it's like, okay, yeah, I see that. But the key new thing here is like, and we are committed to meeting players where they are by bringing great games to more people on more devices. It seems like this is the strategy now. This is it. It is. Xbox, they could probably, I think they can resuscitate Xbox console sales again by putting out great games, but I don't think they're not going to build a future relying on being able to figure that out. Their future is the games are wherever the games are.
That's what I said. It's like you can either have one shot or two shots, and in a business world with the modern realities of business, you want the two shots approach. I feel like we said earlier, I don't know how hard they lean into it. I think that what they plan to do is the big games stay on Xbox and are that kind of lightning rod, the lure to buy an Xbox, like the Indiana Jones. Maybe the Indiana Jones games comes to PlayStation, but I think it will be a long time after they look at the books and say, all right, we're now no longer selling consoles using this game.
Sure.
So that's when it appears. But I feel like it's also like a second lease on life for a lot of the smaller games that would like have garnered interest. Like Hi-Fi Rush is a great one.
I think it's exactly what they said about Hi-Fi Rush too.
Yeah. They're like, it's a fantastic game. It kind of came out of nowhere, and that was potentially to some small degree to its detriment, but people like weren't ready for it. And it deserved to perform way better than it probably did being locked to a single platform, which is how they do. And same goes for Pentiment. Pentiment, an incredible game, very unique, very smartly designed, very like daring. And to have it just be an Xbox game, it feels like that's probably an issue for them, where they're like, oh, we can put this on another platform and it gets more love, and we build more love as well. There's no downside to it. They put a game that everyone is talking about on another platform, and people generally, whether they admit it or not, there's a little more goodwill towards Xbox or Microsoft, you know?
Yep. And I think it's it starts building up the narrative. They're like, well, Xbox has all these games. And it's like, I think right now people are like, well, these are all acquisitions. And so, but like, I don't know what that means. Like the list of Sony games in the top 25, it's MLB The Show 24, which is like, I think a game they built up organically, but then it's Destiny 2, and then Helldivers 2, Stellar Blade, and Rise of Ronin. And 3 of those are from companies they don't own.
MLB is also on Xbox.
Right, exactly. Yes, exactly. So it's like all that stuff about like acquisitions, organic growth, non-organic growth doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's about games and who's putting them out and who makes the money from selling them. And Xbox continue to bring these games to PlayStation. I think is that's the end of the story there. That this is happening. Going forward, this is it. So
again, like people hate that. People they're so resistant to it. I see it all the time.
I don't even really like it that much when in my animal brain, I'm like, I think about it. I'm like, I like the way things were. I liked having a reason to have to buy a console. I don't know why I like that, Tam, but part of me it's because I grew up that way.
I mean, it is, I hate to say it, but it's tribalism.
Yeah,
like,
I
that
think it is
enforced in, and like, I'm not shitting on America, even, just because I'm British or whatever, but like, it is especially palpable in America, where everything is like tribalism. You're one side or the other. Yeah, it's like, Democrats, Republicans. What sports team do you do?
Ford, Chevy.
Are you Ford, Chevy, Coke, Pepsi, Red Vines, and the other one. It's part of everything is a team sport in this country, in this nation, and that kind of dynamic is one of America's biggest exports, and that's why it's like you're built to kind of like think of everything in that way, and eventually when you realize that, you can enjoy things without having to put up borders and enjoy other people enjoying things, that kind of goes away. But you have to kind of be self-aware enough to shut that animal brain part of you down and be like, that's stupid. Why was I thinking like that? And most people aren't capable. I mean, the people that we unfortunately are colliding with on like the general public of the gaming world have no self-reflection. They just want to see their color win, their shape win, and it's like, whatever. Grow up.
Yep, grow up. I think when I think about the future of Xbox, I see the number diving. I'm still not that worried. They have a plan to figure things out, and I think. The future of consoles was already looking like something was going to have to change here. You brought up the very beginning of both these stories, Sony making a lot of similar moves, even though we're looking at they won. So why are they like having similar concerns? Because it's about growth and it's not there for them. And just because their numbers keep going up, it's not going up fast enough.
And you know what the real truth of the matter is? Honestly, both Red Vines and Twizzlers suck. Everyone needs to take a cold, hard look at themselves in the mirror and really think about what they're fighting for.
No, this is the one that matters to me.
They are pure, unadulterated garbage, and it is the clearest indication of someone never being outside of their own bubble is whether they like one of those things. Literally go to any other country and taste their candy.
We gotta fight about
actual candy. You guys are eating wax and fighting over it, killing each other over it.
Do you like black licorice at all? I like black licorice a little bit.
I love black licorice.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Shoutouts. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. When we get back, we got a lot more headlines to get to, including what's happening with BlizzCon and more. All right, we are back as promised. Here's a new headline. BlizzCon 2024 has been canceled, but Blizzard has big Warcraft plans in store. This comes from Darren Bonthus at GameSpot. Blizzard has announced that there will be...
I just want to point out, Warcraft has all the same letters for like 90% of it as war crimes. And for a minute, my brain was like, oh!
Blizzard has big war crime plans. They're done assaulting their employees. They've moved on to some bigger stuff now. Cool. From Darren Bonthus at GameSpot. Blizzard has announced that there will be no 2024 BlizzCon event. It's semi-regular convention where it makes its biggest announcements. The event has been held since 2005 and typically sees Blizzard reveal what's next for its biggest franchises like Diablo, Warcraft, and Overwatch. While BlizzCon 2024 isn't happening, Blizzard has pledged to return to the event in the future. After careful consideration over the last year, we at Blizzard have made the decision not to hold BlizzCon in 2024, Blizzard said in a press statement. This decision was not made lightly, as BlizzCon remains a very special event for all of us, and we know many of you look forward to it. While we're approaching this year differently, as we have expected different event formats in the past, or explored different event formats in the past, rest assured that we are just as excited as ever to bring BlizzCon back in the future years. Blizzard added that it'll be sharing more details on upcoming game launches later this year with new looks at World of Warcraft: The War Within and Diablo 4's first expansion, Vessel of Hatred. I know what these names are incredible. Some of these reveals are being planned for other industry trade shows and conventions like Gamescom, and Blizzard is also working on celebrating the 30th anniversary of Warcraft with multiple in-person events across the globe. I want to celebrate the Vessel of Hatred with my friends, though, Dan.
The Vessel of Hatred is also why they canceled this, because the Vessel of Hatred is actually the second name for the Blizzard community right now.
Okay, I was like, is he going to go with Blizzard community or Bobby Kotick? I was like, not sure.
I mean, like, I understand, but also, like, this is like the kind of, in a lot of ways, the chickens coming home to roost. It's like BlizzCon and Blizzard built an incredibly close relationship with their audience. BlizzCon is where those developers become accessible. They blasted like the event across the world, and everyone gets to see what happens. Imagine doing that with this current sentiment around Blizzard.
Yeah, okay.
It is going to be a straight up meme factory. Like, it is brutal.
And that's like the slight. Okay, you're definitely right about most of it, but apparently, like, the Warcraft community right now is like positive. That's what's weird. It's like, I think they didn't predict that, and they made all these decisions before they saw that happening, because it's like a really recent phenomenon, and maybe it's a temporary recent phenomenon that will go away very fast again. But it's like people are pretty happy with where Warcraft is at and where it's headed.
Ironically, and I think about how different a time we are in now. Warcraft alone is no longer capable of sustaining Blizzard. Like, and there was a time when Warcraft was the only thing that was like keeping, like, they could put their feet up and just watch the money roll in.
Yes. They have to grow like everyone
changed
else.
So much.
Yeah,
because like now it's like, oh yeah, you can't have an event on BlizzCon scale just for one kind of happy audience right now, when literally everyone else is pissed. That is how you go to a Warcraft panel and have someone from the Overwatch audience be like, what the fuck are you doing? What's going on here? And like, that is, like I said, it's too dangerous for them, like from a PR perspective. And also, beyond Warcraft, the other games are like not popping off in the way that they probably need to be before showing up in public, you know. And also the visions for a lot of them is kind of unclear as well. It's confusing, and it feels like they're all scrambling to just get a foothold, whereas Warcraft is like doing much better. But how long before we get a sequel to Warcraft now?
Right. Yeah, and I think like Diablo's going to take a minute to like get to fully prop back up. It's not like it's in a Overwatch 2 like ditch.
No.
But you're right. The excitement's not quite there, and I think they'll be able to build a lot of this stuff back up. Again, it seems like these things are trending in the right direction, other than Overwatch 2. But at the same time, it's like, you're right. Why hold these events unless you're sure, unless you have stuff to show that is very exciting and the community is already feeling positive. You want to have like things on both sides there.
Yeah.
And then and it's like, this thing's probably expensive. They hold it in like Anaheim, right?
Yeah. It's in Anaheim. I've been once and it was genuinely fantastic.
Oh, I'm sure they do a great job.
There.
Yeah.
I think I was there the year Overwatch got announced or something like that. And I remember thinking, that seems all right.
But
and then a couple years later, I'm obsessed with it.
Like
TennoCon is in Canada, Ontario.
Right.
Wherever Digital Extremes is based.
Canada's not like some like, super cheap place to do things, but it's going to be cheaper than Anaheim, California.
I mean, like, you have to. It is very expensive, so you have to make that calculation. And it's not to say like those games that they have are like fallen off like so hard within their own communities, and like relative to a lot of other games, they're doing well. Like Overwatch is fine. It's just not Overwatch of old. And Diablo, I really like, and it's doing pretty well. Like they're doing some cool things with it, so they could have those. But like relative to how much it costs to put on an event like that, and the risk of things going weird, I don't think that's enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And I think if they had a couple big games ready to announce, they would probably go for it. Like, didn't they canceled that survival game? They laid off a bunch of people. I think this is like, hey, let's go have a celebration. Well, did you just some of the questions probably would be like, didn't you have layoffs and didn't you cancel your game? Why are we celebrating? So I think you nailed it. They just want to avoid those situations or worse, because fans could be very petty about a bunch of other stuff that we're not even thinking of. So yeah.
Hey, do you know what's wild to me?
Please.
It makes sense, but like, at no point was there a Destiny convention.
Yeah.
Like at one point, surely
they were like
that,
and they were like very like hooked in their community at one point. Yes.
Yeah. And there was one point where it was doing so well, but I don't think they had I don't think Bungie did anything crazy with it. So it's very fascinating to me.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just like maybe something they probably talked about. But they're like, man, that's like a whole other set of skills that we just don't have. But I mean, like, there's TennoCon, there's that Eve Fan Fest in Iceland. Like, these things do happen for all kinds of games. So you're right, that is a little odd.
Yeah. I think there was a couple of fan ones or stuff like that, but
I'm sure.
Official.
Capcom is delisting 3 of its most underrated games, and it's unclear why. This is from George Yang at GameSpot.
God, this is the funniest story I've seen. This is like, I feel like I'm being gaslit by the entire industry.
Yeah,
right now
let's get into it. I think I'm with you. Capcom is delisting some of its most underrated games soon, namely one from the Dark Void series. According to Steam, the games Dark Void 0, and Flock will be removed from the storefront on May 8th. The reasoning behind the delisting is currently unclear, as well as if the removal will also extend to PSN Store and Xbox Live Marketplace. Okay, which one's the under? I think Flock actually might be underrated. People seem to really like that game. I don't remember hearing about it. If I do, I forgot about it. It's like a sheep herding game or something.
I understand. I'll caveat everything I'm saying with, sure. I understand that preservation is really very important, and from that perspective, it sucks that these are going away. But these games are ass. Yeah. Like, relax.
Dark Void is like actually not good.
Dark Void is like not good, but it's funny. That's why people remember it. Flock is like okay.
Right?
It's fine. It. Like it's not like Journey. It's not Braid. Okay. It's not, it's not like those Celeste. It's not like one of those kind of games that is going away where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they take this away. If I had asked people to name an indie game from Capcom that begins with F and ends in CK, people would not have got it.
Well, yeah.
They would never have got it. Everyone would be getting flick flack. Yeah, but no one would have got it. Trust me. But like, it sucks that these games are going away for apparently no reason, but also like, don't act like you give a shit. Relax, man.
Yep. It's
Nolan North is in Dark Void, and even he's like, yeah, I'm good, man. I've seen some interview. I think like Kind of Funny called him up one time and were like, remember when you were Dark Void? He's like, please don't talk to me about this.
The best thing about Dark Void is the soundtrack. It's got a pretty good soundtrack. I can't remember who did it, but it was like a famous composer. That's pretty good. I did go and add these games to my Steam account, though. So hey, they got me. They got me. I've never
maybe that's maybe how that goes down now. Capcom threatens to kill you, kill your games until you pay a ransom, and then once they do it, they're like, we decided not to.
Why didn't Dark Void work? I think it's a good idea. The vertical cover shooter, you're flying with a backpack up a wall. Okay, that's pretty silly, but I like it. Why didn't it work?
The composer was Bear McCreary, by the way.
Oh, Bear McCreary, right? I love Bear.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there? like Dark Void was just kind of boring, right? That was what, like, yeah.
It was kind of, it was an attempt to try and do the Nathan Drake era of video games a little bit differently. So I respected it from that perspective, where it's like, oh, you wanted a Nathan Drake game, but you went a little weird with it. And from that perspective, it was like okay and enjoyable to like see. But it wasn't good to play. It wasn't fun to play. It was goofy in a lot of ways, and I don't remember having a good time with it beyond the novelty of vertical cover.
Right. Yes.
It was also, I think it was in the era where like Capcom was back to trying to mess around with like weird ideas. I think like that's when Bionic Commando returned.
Yeah,
like
it was in that time,
and
definitely. Yeah.
And it was like, oh hell yeah, these guys are figuring it out with their old games and coming up with weird new ideas with the new ones. But I think like this was around the time when Lost Planet was also kind of doing okay. So they had an era where they catered to like the West a bit more, and it feels like this is one of those games. And where I was like, oh, let's make games that the people outside of Japan are going to be super into, you know?
Yep.
When the truth is, we want the games that people into Japan are super into.
Even when they don't want it anymore, we want those games.
We want those games. Yeah, give us those. Bring back God Hand, you cowards.
The thing I remember most about Dark Void is that Craig Kujawa worked on, I think he was design director, and he used to be the sports game reviewer guy at EGM. And I was always like, Craig Kujawa, what are you doing making Capcom games?
I just went to the Wikipedia page for Dark Void, and the producer is listed as Jim Deal Jeff Combos, which that
sounds like a competitor to Slim Jims. I don't know, man.
Jeff Combos.
Jeff Combos.
Oh, there is a person called Jeff Combos.
That's a
powerful
name.
Oh my god.
That's a very powerful
apparently
name.
Works at Exile Game Studio. Jeff Combos is a real person. I am on Jeff Combos' Twitter right now. Writer, game designer, and creative producer, president of Exile Game Studios, and creator of award-winning Hollow Earth Expedition RPG. Jeff Combos is easily in the top 10 names of all time.
Jeff Combos is incredible.
I feel like if I had that name, I would become the best Marvel vs. Capcom 2 player in the world.
It's the kind of name I would put down, like, you know, when Mike Vick went to go get his his STI testing and he put down Ron Mexico. Like that's my Ron Mexico. I'm like, what's your name? Jeff Combos.
Listen, everyone. This is we're going to harness the power of this community. Jeff Combos has a criminal 135 followers. We need to get in there.
Everyone go follow Jeff Combos. What's his name?
Before we J.A. Combos. Before we do this, I must disclose, if he turns out to be a wrong'un, I take no responsibility.
Oh, yeah, of course not.
I am doing this for pure banter. I do not endorse Jeff Combos. I don't know what his whole shtick is. I hope he's a nice person.
If he turns out to be a... This is the best.
Oh, damn. Yeah, that's even better. Even better. We'll like beef up his numbers, and maybe one day he'll return.
I'm going to tweet Tam endorses Jeff Combos.
No!
There we go. All right. Well done.
We need to get him on a podcast.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, we're here with Jeff Combos. Jeff, who are you?
Tell us everything about Jeff Combos. I need to know. Yeah. All right. Yes. The best name we've heard so far this year. All right. Yeah. Moving on here. FCC has reinstated net neutrality. This is from Diego Nicolas Arguello at GameSpot. Earlier today, the Federal Communications Commission voted to reinstate net neutrality. Taking place during an April open meeting, Commissioner Ana M. Gomez voted in favor of restoring federal oversight of broadband internet access service under the Title II of the Communications Act. According to a press release, the aim is to ensure the resource is open, safe, secure for all moving forward. Broadband access to the internet is a crucial conduit that is essential for modern life, said Gomez in the press release. Protecting this critical infrastructure is essential to the safety and economy of health, education, and well-being of this country, and is good public policy. Net neutrality. Go ahead.
We should establish or explain what net neutrality is, because even it's like a double negative phrase, which confuses even me at times. So I'm sure there's people out there who are like, what the fuck?
Right. So net neutrality is the idea that, like, if a big company were to like say, hey, we want to pay our broadband provider, the backbone providers of the internet, to give us preferential treatment, that would be against the rules. So let's say Facebook doesn't want any Facebook competitors. Right now, the way they do this is when a Facebook competitor comes around, they pay them a bunch of money and buy them, which is another problem, but whatever. That's what they do. Without net neutrality, they could instead be like, let's just pay to make our stuff faster and their stuff worse, make a deal with the internet service providers and across the board. And when their stuff is worse, people won't want to use it. They'll just come back to us. That's like the worst case scenario of net neutrality. And there's a bunch of other factors in there, but basically it's just like all data being exchanged across the internet should be treated equally. That's it.
Yeah. And there was a period where people were trying to make this happen. Like they were trying to cordon off like lanes on the internet where, their customers have a much better experience than other customers. And you had to be in their, motorway if you wanted a good experience. Right. There was a concerted effort to make that happen for a while.
Right. So in 2015, net neutrality did get passed into law or, law regulation, whatever. It was a rule. In 2017, under the Trump administration, they repealed it back. And since then, it's like the internet didn't fall apart or anything, but it's like we don't know what we don't know about what these companies were trying to do to make things unfair or unbalanced, or how charges might have been happening in the background that were raising prices that we couldn't see. But it seemed like for the most part, the market was probably keeping things in check, because if a company was doing these things, there would be some backlash. But it's like, we don't know. And these things slowly erode over time, where it's like the protections that are there because that's best for the market and that's just good business. Eventually someone finds a way around that and they bypass it, and then everything falls apart. We've seen this over and over again. That's what the enshittification of the internet is all about. So it's like, this is a pretty good rule to have back in place. And really, it's the idea that anyone can go put a website on the internet, and if it's better than another website, even if it's really tiny, they have the same ability to serve you up that content as quickly as possible. So it's good news.
Who was it that was the menace around this? Was it Ajit Pai?
Ajit Pai. Yeah. He was just a giant douchebag.
Yeah, he was a fucking loser.
God, he sucked. He was so smug about it too.
Yeah, he was the worst.
He had that giant, the enormous, Reese's cup mug. I wanted to smash it in his face. Sorry, violence, but this is what's in my heart.
The thing that we need now is actual enforcement of it.
Yes,
because like you said, we don't know what we don't know.
We don't.
But so reinstating net neutrality is good, but are there people in the back end looking at it and making sure in the same way the anti-competition issues like that, or monopolization stuff is enforced? We need hopefully they have mechanisms in place to actually do an audit of how the internet is currently working. I hope the FCC is capable of that, to say you guys, during this phase previous to reinstatement of it, you made these moves and you need to undo those so we can create a level playing field where everyone's having the best experience possible again.
Yep. And I think, and overall, just moving in this direction of having the internet being treated more like a utility is a good thing. A lot of these giant platforms, there's constant controversy with TikTok that just got outlawed. Apparently they're going to have to sell. Twitter continuing to be run into the ground, even though they keep saying it's the internet's public square. It's like, well, a public square is a public piece of property. What are you talking about? Dude. That's owned by the people. Yeah. So should Twitter be owned by people? Should it be a utility at the very least? It's like, well, no. Well, maybe it should be. Maybe that should be a utility.
It shouldn't be owned by the guy who makes cars and they have malfunctioning accelerator pedals.
Yeah,
insane behavior. I mean, it's not him making it, but still.
No, but it's 100% his ideologies, because I always think about the stories of his a mega factory where it's all of the warning things that are yellow in every other single factory. He doesn't like that color of yellow, so he's like, we're not going to do that. It's like, well, actually, that's the law. You have to do it. Yeah. And it's also best practices. It's that color because everyone understands it immediately. And it's like, no, I don't like that color yellow. So just let's kill more people accidentally, just because I don't like a color. Fucking get out of here, you clown.
Get out of here.
All right. Last couple of stories. Nintendo Switch 2 report details a magnetic Joy-Con Pro Controller and Pro Controller compatibility for the new system. This is from Tom Phillips at Eurogamer. Switch 2 will feature Joy-Con controllers that connect to the main console using magnets, a new report suggests. Citing sources from accessory manufacturers, Spanish site Vandal states that the Switch 2 Joy-Con will stick to the console itself magnetically rather than use the fiddly rail system of the current Switch and Switch OLED. There's more.
This is going to make the Insane Clown Posse very excited, but like no one else gives a shit.
You think about magnets without thinking about the Insane Clown Posse? Because I can't. No, I absolutely cannot. I'm just going around like, and I like made up lyrics to that song in my head too. Like, I want to be best friends with miracles, and I sing that to myself all the time too. Okay, a couple things. This would mean likely that your current Joy-Cons don't work on the new Switch. Does that bother you, first of all, Tam?
I would just like to go on record and say I hate the Joy-Cons. I think they are one of the worst controllers ever created.
I also don't like the rail system.
And I don't like the rail system. I feel like Nintendo gets away with making the shittest controllers sometimes, and people just, because it's Nintendo, they like gaslight themselves into believing they're good. I'm going to say, I've said this before, Nintendo 64 controller is ass. My controller doesn't need a dick.
Nintendo did make it.
The GameCube controller, awful.
Like, GameCube controller's not awful.
It looks like a Fisher-Price console. It looks like a Fisher-Price controller. Wave Bird is fine. We made it work. GameCube controller, get a grip, everyone. It sucks.
The big green button. You just press it to win. It's the win button.
Why are the buttons different? Why are they different? Every button is a different size and shape on that thing. It's insane behavior. It's crazy.
Every controller should have bean-shaped buttons. Okay, I will say it. Joy-Cons, the connected to Joy-Cons. I hate that. I hate that when it feels so flimsy.
So like the point of reference that I have in my mind is all of Apple's shit, where like you put MagSafe, essentially. That's what like they probably are going for. I would love if they did that on anything but a fucking Joy-Con. I don't want that. Like literally like you buy a Switch, and most people who take gaming some level of seriously, or like I enjoy games, the first thing they tell other people is buy a Pro controller. Don't use that shitty thing.
Yeah, especially don't use it if you're playing with TV.
Yeah. Why would you double down on the worst controller you have?
So I'm hopeful that this means an overall sort of redesign as well. I don't like fully hate using the Joy-Con when it's on the Switch. I'm fine with that for the most part. As soon as you take it off and try to connect it to the thing to turn it into a real controller, I'm like, this does feel stupid. I want to use something else. But for me, it's all about the way those things feel when they're connected to the Switch. That the rail system is I can feel the give, and I've said it before, but it always gives me this the subconscious idea of like, this thing's going to fall out of here, and so I'm like cradling it, and that makes my hands fatigue faster, and I just hate it. And like on every single Switch I've owned, I have had 4, counting the OLED and the original launch model, all that stuff. Something happens with the rail system where it's like, you no longer have to hit the button to get the thing out. It just slides out if you give it enough force. And I hate that so much. So what I'm hoping is that this is not just magnets. I hope the magnets sort of like make it so it lines up, and then there's some sort of like quick lock mechanism to keep it in place. If that's, and it feels super sturdy. If that's the case, I'll be much happier. And then I do want them to improve the overall feel of these Joy-Con controllers, however they work. But if they're exactly the same otherwise, I'll live. But yeah, I get the complaints though. Yeah.
Yeah, and also like fix the drift. Like, is that problem gone now?
No,
I don't think so.
It's not, but it's like better. They should fix it because there's been a solution to it since the fucking Dreamcast. Excuse me.
Yeah,
but since the Dreamcast with the Hall effect sensors, and those are in a lot. They're appearing in more and more controllers these days from third party. The idea that they need to keep going back to the same supplier that has been providing them of these sticks that do degrade so fast over time, especially for something that's going to get a little bit rough use, being a portable handheld. Just use the Hall effect sensors. Do it from out of the gate.
And like, there's really no excuse considering how expensive Nintendo's controllers are. Like, they are always just. I remember the cost of like Wii remotes, sorry, and they were like, "Oh my god, this thing is so ass! Like, why are we doing this?" I feel like these things are gonna cost more. Like they got magnets in them now, which means that you also need to think about the impact magnets have on the rest of the controller, which is not going to be easy to, like, I imagine, engineer safely and like in a way that doesn't introduce loads of bad new problems. But like, you cannot come out with a controller that feels rattly when you connect it to the console and over time just like starts to fall off and shit like that. And also, like, I think it's best when it's actually connected to a Switch. That's when it's usable, but it's still not it still doesn't feel good.
They could make it better.
Yeah, I feel like I'm holding a book, and it does not feel good.
Yep. At the very least, okay. All that said, I don't want them to do a Switch model that has controllers that don't come off, because I do want to be able to replace them with my own third-party options if I so choose. I think that was actually a good idea overall, because those buttons they could eventually break. The sticks clearly have drifted, so having them be replaceable, that still is a good idea, right?
Yeah. I feel like I wish more people would look at what Steam and Valve did with the Steam Deck, where they just partnered with a reputable company and were like, here's everything you need to know, and we endorse you in being the official fixers of this shit. If it breaks, like, you guys fix this, you're good at it, we'll also fix it, but like, if you want a part or whatever, is it iFixit or something like that, the company that they work with, where it's like, they got you covered, and it's like not expensive either. I wish it was like that, but the problem is they also, they gatekeep the ability to fix their stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, and also like the system is real bad, like takes forever, and it's like not great. But yeah, there's so many hurdles to overcome before you start messing with controllers.
Right, and people mentioned the Hall effect thing that we were talking about is that's a magnetic field. So if those magnets are in there, that could make the Hall effect not work, and so maybe you wouldn't be able to do that. Although maybe what things are getting mixed up here. Maybe the magnets are actually a reference to something like the Hall effect sensor or something like that, and that's actually what's happening here. But I don't know. I would prefer a mechanical solution to connect these things to the Switch 2. Just make that so much better, and then give me Hall effect. That's the right solution for me. Improve everything else, sure, yeah, absolutely. Better sticks. I think the sticks are okay, but the sticks on something like a Steam Deck are so much better that like we can do better sticks on a handheld at this point. But whatever. At this point, I just want it to feel sturdy. That's my biggest thing. All right. Last thing here, Resident Evil creator wants to break free from the survival horror genre with new studio. This is Jordan Midler at VGC. Veteran video game developer Shinji Mikami has opened up about his departure from Tango Gameworks in a new interview. It was confirmed last February that Mikami was leaving Tango Gameworks, the studio behind The Evil Within, Ghostwire Tokyo, and Hi-Fi Rush, which he founded in 2010 before selling it to Bethesda. After it emerged last month that Resident Evil creator had established a new company, Mikami appeared on Japanese YouTube channel Biking to discuss his career and what he wants to do in the future. According to Automaton, which is the translation service. It's like a Google Translate like thing. Mikami told Biking that he'd planned to leave Tango for 8 years before doing so, but he felt a responsibility to continue working on the studio's games. Asked why he wanted to leave, he reportedly cited his desire to create an environment designed to give young game creators more regular experience by making games with shorter development cycles, and said he thinks there's an audience for more unique, small-scale titles. Mikami is best known for his time at Capcom, where he directed the first Resident Evil, its 2002 GameCube remake, and Resident Evil 4, among other titles. He also reportedly said he wanted to leave Tango to break free from the survival horror genre that made him famous. Mikami also clarified his role within Tango Gameworks prior to his departure. I'd only been CEO for 6 months. I think a lot of people were under the impression that I was the representative, but I was very close to the rank and file employee. I'm glad that Mikami's sticking around. I wasn't sure what he would do after Tango Gameworks. It did seem like he was still intent on coming back and making games. Seems like he's very intent on doing that, but I think he just wanted the autonomy to. Oh God, I'm getting that wrong.
Third time's a charm.
No, it's not going to happen. My brain's not.
I believe in you. I believe in you.
Autonomy.
Do this.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Dregsday, baby. We're doing it.
Let's go.
I think he wanted that so that he could do what he's saying here, like try something completely new and not worry about having to serve any sort of expectations. And he left a studio in place that can carry on that legacy, so people can look forward to one of their survival horror games, like The Evil Within 3. If they announced that, people would be like, well, yeah, Mikami can go do whatever he wants now. What do you think he would do, though? Like, what do you think he would approach? Like, what do you want to see from someone like a Shinji Mikami?
I honestly don't know. And I think that's part of the problem, right? Like, I don't have a good grasp of what Mikami is even capable of beyond survival horror. And like, that's not to say that he's never made any other games beyond survival horror, because during his time at Capcom, he was like, instrumental in a bunch of major titles that weren't survival horror games. Like he was involved, I think, in Phoenix Wright. He was involved in like God Hand and Beautiful Joe, and a lot of the Clover stuff was had his fingerprints on it. Onimusha, I guess, counts as kind of survival horror. But like he's capable. P&O 3 is another one that he was in part of as well. But I want him to go back to that era. Like I hope that he can get back into the Clover era mindset. You know what I mean? And just come up with like, I'm gonna do some weird shit and make it small, but also, you know, interesting. And like he says, I really admire the idea of creating a environment where young upstart game designers can flourish, because it's something I don't think we talk about a lot, and I don't talk about it because I don't have enough personal experience and insight into it, but I have heard a lot of people talk about it. It's really hard to have like a thriving indie scene in Japan in terms of game development. Most people are funneled into the big companies, and
yes, that's been the tradition.
Yeah, and like you can tell it is weird because like even when like Kojima set up his own new studio, people are like, oh, that's weird. But like that's happening more and more. But currently, it feels like the people who are able to do that viably, successfully, or even thinking about doing that are the big names, the Kojimas, the Mikamis, the whoever it may be. And there's not much of a on ramp or even a kind of culture of doing it with people who come straight out of university or college and want to make video games. That's the kind of thing that happens here in the Western world, where it's like, oh, my first game out of university, I'm going to set up a studio and let's go. It's not happening to the point where those companies or those new studios are at least emerging into a public, spotlight. In the same way they do on the Western side. So if he's there to do that while also making games that are like a little more feeding his soul outside of survival horror and being weird with them, I'm all for it. I'd love to see that. I just would love to see him do another kind of like weird God Hand style thing.
Yeah. Bit Summit is like their indie game festival, and that just turned like 10 years old last year, I think. So it's
also very, very good. Bit Summit is awesome.
Yes. But I think that's like they are like, I think that the developers there are being like, we do want these opportunities. How do we go about doing this? I think the old heads being providing a structure for them to do that and maybe in a more safe and understandable way is a good thing. And Shinji Mikami, I think I kind of experimented with that with Hi-Fi Rush, of like letting a team in Tango Gameworks go ahead and make what they wanted to make and sort of staying back and like giving them the room to do that. It's like, I bet he really enjoyed that process. So I'd like to see that. Yeah. And it, of course, one of the benefits of having a culture where it's like everyone does go work for these studios is people can work at these places for a very long time and they can all work together and build up a rapport and make great games. And I think that's been a benefit, but having a healthy indie scene would also be a good thing in Japan. Yeah. And that's what they're heading in that direction.
Yeah, and also like the democratization of like knowledge around video games. Like it doesn't happen a lot globally, but I feel like it happens way more in the Western world than it does in like Japan and various other non-Western, I guess, territories. Like I really like what Sakurai is doing with his YouTube channel, where he's just like talking about game design and how, what's important to him. Yeah. It's really fascinating. And like I feel like that is doing so much good work in helping people around the world understand how to make games. Demystify it. And he talks about the tolls it takes as well, in a very real way. And I feel like the idea of having these legendary developers kind of come out there and mentor up and comers more is really good, and do it outside of a very rigid structure, because I'm sure it happens, but it's like it's happening within Capcom, it's happening within Konami, so that it can stay there, as opposed to being off on its own, where the people who then have that knowledge are in charge of the thing that they make in the most significant way possible.
Yep. All right, let's get to the poll question. This is from yesterday. Do you still have an instrument controllers for Rock Band? 33% said yes. 67% said no. That's a higher number than I was expecting. 2,000 votes, 33% are saying, yeah, I still have that. Maybe there's a little bit of selection bias. People just only answer this if they, did have it. But no, I mean, hey, that mode in Fortnite now supports a lot of those old instruments. So this is pretty cool. Pretty excited about that. And I guess maybe people aren't like throwing those things away away like you would imagine they might have. Do you still have a controller for Rock Band or anything like that?
No, not obviously I moved countries, so I didn't.
Oh, right.
There was no way I'm taking that shit with me.
Yes, no
I
way.
think I bounced out of the Rock Band and Guitar Hero era while it was still wired, like wired controllers were still a thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever had a wireless one. After that era, the only instrument that I really bought was DJ Hero decks, and I bought like both versions of those because those are awesome. But yeah, I don't believe, and I think I got rid of all that stuff as well. It was like done.
All right. We have a new poll question while I get that set up and get that ready. Tam, why don't you tell people what we have going on this week, what we have going on, Giant Bomb, all those good things.
We have got UPF coming very, very soon. Is it 9:30 now or 10?
I think it's 10. Let me just take a look at the calendar, double check. So that would be at how many
there's a big 92-point font bit of text that says moved UPF up to 9:30 a.m.
That's from weeks ago.
We
ignored. Yeah, I think that's old. It's at 1 p.m. Eastern, which would be 10 a.m. Pacific time. So yes, about an hour from now, everybody. We'll
gives me a whole hour in the toilet. I love it.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So we've got UPF coming, and then is it Revengeance this
yes,
week?
Revengeance this week. We're going to be doing our Stellar Blade review cast. We're going to have Imran on to talk about it. Sean, Jan have been playing. They're going to talk about it. I've been playing a little bit. I'm going to be asking them some questions. So we'll do that after UPF. But UPF
will be good.
Fallout 76.
Fallout 76 for UPF. Imran reviewed Stellar Blade for GameSpot. So tune in and you can hear some of his expert thoughts. He's also very, very, very knowledgeable, especially on this genre. So it's going to be cool. And then next week we start afresh.
Start afresh.
We are working on some really fun stuff for everyone come Summer Game Fest time.
That's right.
Really, really excited about what's going to happen. If I'm not going to say anyone.
But we're working on stuff, everybody. Don't worry.
We're working on stuff. Don't worry. It's coming together. It's going to be fun. Yeah. If you're in the area, you'll have a great time as well.
That's right. All right. Let's see here. Tam, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely.
I love doing this.
Glad you were back. And thank you, everybody, for watching. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care. Oh, I did forget the poll question. New poll question. That's right. I knew I was forgetting something. It is, do you want Nintendo to use the same Joy-Cons on the next Switch? Yes or no? It's going up now. All right. Bye, everybody. Best audience gaming. Until next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.